Chicks, welcome back to My Kitten Reads. I'm Eleanor and this is my December 2025 reading wrap up. I do apologise for going silent a bit in December. I had planned to record a couple of unboxings before I went to Tasmania and then forgot. Got distracted and forgot, and so that didn't happen, and then I was in Tasmania for 2 weeks. So yeah, nothing really happened on the vlogging side. So let's see how we go with the new year. I did meet my goal, and I think I read 11 things. Was it 11? I think it was 11. Yes, it was 11 things in December. You're going to notice a theme because halfway through December, I discovered Heated Rivalry. Yeah, you can tell where this is going, right? Great! It's gonna be a really nice late bump for my queer reading stats. And but yeah, so anyway, this is what I read in December. And we'll go straight there because I was reading bits of things, but hadn't finished anything until I discovered Heated Rivalry, and I didn't watch it originally. I actually read the book first, before I subscribed to HBO Max in order to watch it. Yeah. But I also read the series in a really odd way. So I read Heated Rivalry, which is the second book, first, because that's the book that the TV show is based on. And then I read the first book second, which I had actually bounced off initially months and months ago. But I read it second here because it's the Scott Hunter storyline is the first book, and that is key to the second book. Yeah, anyway, so I read that second, and then I skipped directly to book 6, and then because it was the direct sequel to book 2, and then I read the in-between ones. So this is what I read in December. I started by reading Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reid, and then Game Changer by Rachel Reid. So these are the first 2 books, in the wrong order, but the first 2 books of the Game Changers series, which are male hockey romance novels. So Heated Rivalry is the story of Shane Hollander and Ilya Rozanov, who are rivals from the start of their careers, hook up a lot when they see each other, fall in love. They are romance novels, so they do actually follow the traditional romance novel story beats and structure, which I think is one of the things that's been shocking people about the TV show, because the first series, they have been given us a season 2, which is probably still a year away because they haven't started writing it yet, but it has a happy ending. Like series 1 has a happy ending. It has 2 happy endings because it covers 2 books. That's how romance novels work. There has to be a happy ending. So I think that's one of the things that's shocking a lot of people who aren't used to romance novels. I don't read a lot of romance novels outside of my Austen variation verse, but I've studied romance novels, and that's the way romance novels as a genre work. There is a happily ever after at the end. It doesn't drag on. Usually if you've got a romance novel series like this one, it covers multiple couples like this one does. The fact that there is a direct sequel to Heated Rivalry itself is actually a little bit of a rarity. And that still has a happy ending. Because that's how romance novels work. It's very predictable, and that is why people love them. So, Heated Rivalry, Shane and Ilya, rivals. Game Changer, Scott Hunter, closeted hockey player, falls in love with the guy who makes a smoothie for him, Kip. Drama about the whole being closeted thing. Happy ending. Which is, their happy ending is key to Shane and Ilya's happy ending, essentially. Then, for a bit of a change, an Austen variation, A Change in Jane's Personal Philosophy by Shana Grandison. I didn't love this one. I usually really like Shana Grandison's, but I didn't love this one. I think because all of the elements that this one was based on, I've seen in her work before, and it wasn't anything particularly new. So it's actually, I think, very similar to the plot. Maybe not in the details, but the theme of Jane Takes Charge in her Take Charge series. And there wasn't it, and maybe less, like, even the change in her philosophy wasn't really as dramatic as that was. Like, so yeah, I didn't love this one. I think I only gave it a 2 stars. Where usually I give these novels 3 stars because they're good, they're enjoyable, but they're not like dramatic works of fiction or anything. But I just didn't really love this one, actually. It's not one I really see myself going back to rereading a lot. Sorry, I keep staring off into the distance instead of at the camera. But, you know, it was another one. Then I read Colonel Fitzwilliam's Return by Jan Rowland, another Austen variation, another one in a series of books where this is the third one, and various male characters so far have returned to Meryton. In this case, Colonel Fitzwilliam was never at Meryton, but he wants to get out of his mother's influence. He's at home with an injury, wants to get out of his mother's influence. The Bingleys and Darcy have already left Netherfield. Darcy offers up Netherfield for him to convalesce as being near London, and he figures out things that are going on, and what Darcy's not telling him and what Bingley's not telling him, and changes things. I did very much like that one. I think it made me laugh a few times too. Then I went back to The Long Game by Rachel Reid, which is book 6, and so this is the direct sequel for Shane and Ilya's story, set several years in the future after Heated Rivalry, and I suspect this is what season 2 is going to be of the TV series. Yeah, and I won't spoil it, but, you know, they're changing their circumstances, seeking for their forever future, essentially. Why do I keep looking at, oh my god, I keep staring at like the window or my Dalek. Then I read Tough Guy by Rachel Reid, which is a side quest, and this is book 3, and this is about a defenseman that actually appears in, I'm not sure if he appears in Heated Rivalry or The Long Game. Maybe Heated Rivalry, as a teammate of Ilya, but he's a defenseman who gets traded regularly and has been on many, many teams because he's mostly wanted for his fighting, even though he's actually a really good player. So he's one of those, like, yeah, and he doesn't really want to be fighting, but that's how he's been pigeonholed as a player. He is now at Toronto, but he's dealing with his own sexuality in quite a toxic team, making friends with the goalie, but also running into a friend to the child of people that the son of people he billeted with when he was a teenager, playing junior hockey, and always liked Fabian. And Fabian is now a queer singer, songwriter, performing in clubs and stuff in Toronto, and they are reconnecting. Then I read Common Goal by Rachel Reid, which is book 4, and Common Goal is about Eric Bennett, who is a veteran goalie on Scott Hunter's team. This is a couple of years after they've won the cup, and he's in his last season. He's pretty much in his 40s, I think. He's recently divorced because he and his wife realised that they'd grown apart. It wasn't an acrimonious divorce, but they are now divorced. And he's also coming to terms with the fact that, having been married young, he never explored his bisexuality, and so now Scott Hunter is out. So he's contemplating the end of his career, but also contemplating his sexuality. Meets Kyle, who works at the bar that Kip, Scott Hunter's boyfriend, also goes to a lot, and Kyle is much younger, has his own difficult past with men, but is willing to help Eric with his explorations. So that was fun. I really enjoyed that one. Role Model, which is book 5 of the Game Changers series by Rachel Reid. This is the last one I finished. And in this one, we have a character who's shown up he showed up in Tough Guy, who was the sidekick to Toronto's toxic player. He's just been summarily dumped by his 2-year closeted boyfriend, who's a famous actor who promptly dumped him and got engaged to the person he's been cheating on Troy with. And then, like, literally days later, he was promptly traded to Ottawa because he stood up against, and this hurt. This bit hurt so much because it's unfortunately something that happens in hockey. He yelled at and stood up against the star of the Toronto team, who had been anonymously online accused of rape and sexual assault. His organisation is protecting him. He's denying it. But Troy read the accounts of the anonymous women and he recognised the behaviour. And so he called him out. This guy who had been his best friend, who he'd followed in being toxic and homophobic and stuff because he was hiding. But he read these anonymous accounts. He recognised the behaviour. He called the behaviour out and promptly got traded to Ottawa. Ottawa, where Ilya Rozanov is now the captain, where the previous goalie of his team now is. And so he's having to deal with the fact that he's come out of this. He acknowledges his own behaviour has been terrible, but the league is supporting this toxic asshole. The team is just supporting this toxic asshole, and he couldn't stand it. And he'd just been dumped. And so he moves to Ottawa, where he meets Ilya as the captain, but also meets the new social media manager, Harris, who's adorable, and the new team dog, Chiron. Romance ensues. It's lovely. And I enjoyed it. But yeah, the circumstances of this book, they hurt. They hurt. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can Google certain things about hockey culture in North America. But yeah, it was unfortunately an all too recognisable situation. So, but yes, I very much enjoyed that book. So that was the last of the Game Chamber book. It's book 5 out of 6, but the last one that I read. So yeah, I devoured that series in like less than 2 weeks. Seriously. Really good, really good. Then I also devoured Time to Shine by Rachel Reid, which is not part of Game Changers, but is a standalone gay hockey romance novel. And so Time to Shine is, hang on, I've read so many of them. Yes, so we're in Calgary. So again in Canada, Calgary, the backup goalie who's very experienced, has won cups, getting towards the end of his career, hurts himself. So they have to call up, they've already got another star goalie, but they need another backup. So they call up our friend Landon from the AHL team. Essentially, well, the equivalent of the AHL team. So the minor league team. And he's expecting it to only be for a little while until the regular backup is back to fighting fitness. And he gets there, and the person that makes him the most welcome is the star forward who talks like hell, is cheerful, is, his father is a legacy player, he gets laid a lot, but also fairly openly bi. I'm not sure about publicly openly bi, but, his teammates know what's going on. And gets invited to stay with him in his big empty house. Yeah, you can see where that's going. It's another romance novel. But it's very cute and very funny, and I loved it very, very much. So, yeah, that was another one. The other things that there was still 2 more things. So I ran out of Rachel Reid to read because Her next standalone novel didn't come out until the 1st of January, which I am now halfway through. But I finished Uncanny Magazine issue 66. Now, if you've been following my Uncanny Magazine reading, you will remember that that's about 10 issues ahead of where I was. So I decided randomly, because nominations for Hugos are probably going to be open soon, and I was like, I've got no idea what I would nominate for that. So instead of going to the next edition of Uncanny in my line, I've gone to something from this year. Now, none of the stories really jumped out at me an awful lot. I enjoyed them. I was one in particular I enjoyed, and it's now entirely escaped me. There was a novella in it, and I've forgotten what it was about. But my aim is, if I go to some of the more recent ones, I might actually find something to nominate. So I finished Uncanny Magazine issue 66, edited by Michael Damien Thomas, because at this point Lynn is no longer one of the editors. I think it was just family circumstances. She stepped back. So that was good. And then I finished the year by finishing the only physical book. There was one that I was reading, but I didn't finish it because it was an academic text. But The Buried and the Bound by Rachelle Hassan. This is an Alcrate book. It is a fantasy. It has 3 main characters. Aziza El Amin is a hedge witch, a 16-year-old hedge witch from a long line of magical users. And the barriers between Blackthorn and the Fey realm are starting to fray, and she doesn't know why, but it's getting difficult, and she's trying to keep it together. Then you have Leo, who at the point of his 16th birthday, his family is cursed. His mother lost her ability to speak without toads falling out of her mouth. His father has like a poltergeist that's following him around. And when he turned 16, he lost the memory of his one true love. And he desperately wants the curse fixed, because he knows that there's someone missing. And then there is Tristan, who's a young necromancer, possibly not trustful, because he's bound to the hag, which is causing all of the problems that Aziza is finding. And he has his own secrets as well. And these 3 start finding themselves drawn into each other's webs, trying to figure out what is going on in this town, why there are suddenly hellhounds, why the barriers between worlds are suddenly falling apart, and what are they going to do about it. And it was actually really good, and I really, really enjoyed it. I started reading it earlier this year and got about a third of the way through. So I finished it off at the end of the year, and it was a very good read. And there is a second book, which I think I might like to read as well. So that's The Buried and the Bound by Rachelle Hassan. I quite enjoyed that. I believe she is of Lebanese descent. I saw her described as Lebanese diaspora, so she probably counts as a non-Caucasian author, so that's great. And out of the 11 books, even not including Uncanny, which did definitely have queer stuff and did definitely have writers of colour, of the 11 books, there was like 8 that were queer stories, because I read like 7 Rachel Reid books and this one, because this also has queer characters in it. So like, yeah, my queer reading stats got a really big bump for the end of the year. I still haven't put together my stats. That's on my list of things to do this week, and to record a reading goals and stats video. I also have at least 2 owl crates hovering around, assuming nothing was delivered today. There was a delivery driver at one stage. I haven't checked outside since I got back from the chiropractor, so we'll see. But yeah, so I'm hoping to get a few videos at least recorded this week, even if they're not posted until later in the month, because I still have this week off work. Not sure what's going to happen on the weekend, because I am going to Sydney for a concert. But otherwise, I'm hoping to be a little bit better about my videos this year. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully this year will be a little less stressful. But yeah, so that was I was quite pleased with that reading month. And I will see you again really soon. Bye.